Today, we're going to dive into how 450 years of Portuguese rule and the Catholic faith didn't just tweak a small corner of India, it completely reforged its identity into something you really can't find anywhere else.
So have you ever wondered what makes Goa, well, Goa? It's this amazing place where you can literally feel the mix of Indian and European culture everywhere you go. But how did that happen? Well, the story is way more complex and honestly a lot more brutal than most people think. So let's get right into it, starting at the very beginning.
You might think this story starts with religion, but it doesn't. It starts with conquest. When the Portuguese first showed up, their mission was all about trade and territory, not so much about faith. And their initial approach was, you'll see, surprisingly practical.
Okay, so take a look at this map. This shows the Portuguese getting their first real foothold in 16th century India. In 1510, a commander named Afonso de Albuquerque, who was both a brilliant strategist and absolutely ruthless, seized Goa. And this wasn't just another trading post. No way. This was the start of a permanent European state in India, the capital of their whole Eastern Empire, the Estado India.
Now, Albuquerque's early strategy was incredibly smart. He wasn't really focused on converting everyone. He was a pragmatist. To keep his new prize secure, he kept the local village structures in place, he cut taxes, and, get this, he even pushed his own men to marry local women, all to create a loyal population. He also tried to ban the Hindu practice of sati. The main goal here was simple: stability and control. This was not a religious crusade, at least not yet.
But that whole vibe of tolerance, it was not built to last, not by a long shot. Just a few decades later, a new, fiery religious passion from Europe washed over Goa, and the entire Portuguese mission took a very, very different turn.
And this timeline just shows the shift perfectly. The 1540s, that's the key. The intense ideology of the Counter-Reformation, which was the supercharged Catholic revival movement back in Europe, arrives in Goa with its most dedicated missionaries, the Jesuits. The famous Francis Xavier shows up in 1542, and by 1560, the infamous Goa Inquisition is up and running. The era of tolerance? Yeah, that was officially over.
This quote right here just nails it. The whole mission changed. Suddenly, it wasn't about trade and territory anymore. It was about saving souls. And the methods they used got a lot more aggressive. Hindu temples were torn down, their land was given to the church, and practicing Hinduism in public was outlawed. It wasn't about coexistence anymore. It was about conversion.
And the speed of this new drive was just insane. Francis Xavier was like a force of nature. In a single month, back in 1544, he baptized over 10,000 villagers. Think about that. These were mass conversions, a lot of the time with hardly any religious teaching beforehand. The goal was numbers: get as many people as possible into the church as fast as humanly possible.
So, to make sure everyone stayed in line with this new, rigid religious order, the Portuguese brought out the big guns, one of history's most feared institutions.
So what exactly was the Goa Inquisition? Well, it was basically a religious court set up to make sure every conversion was total. Its main targets were what they called crypto-Hindus. These were new converts who were suspected of secretly holding on to their old beliefs and traditions. The Inquisition's job was to hunt down and stamp out any last trace of Hinduism.
And just look at this list. It shows you how incredibly deep the Inquisition's control went. We're not just talking about banning public prayers. They policed the tiniest details of your daily life. Cooking your rice a certain way, wearing traditional clothes, even refusing to eat pork. Any one of these things could get you accused of heresy. It created this climate of constant fear and social control.
I mean, this wasn't some local secret. The brutality of the Goa Inquisition became notorious. Its reputation spread all the way back to Europe, where famous thinkers like Voltaire called it out as an attack on both basic humanity and, interestingly, on business.
Okay, so here's the most crucial part. You'd think all this immense pressure would just stamp out the local culture, right? Well, that's not what happened. Something way more interesting happened. The two cultures, one trying to dominate, the other trying to survive, they started to fuse together in some really unexpected ways.
What came out of all this was this totally unique, syncretic Goan identity. On one side, you have the massive Portuguese influence, their religion, their laws, their beautiful architecture. But on the other side, you see this incredible local resilience. The Konkani language, it survived. Local customs got woven into Christian holidays. And, maybe most surprising of all, the Hindu caste system wasn't destroyed, it just adapted.
And this part is just mind-blowing. Instead of getting rid of the caste system, it was kind of copied and pasted directly into Goan Catholicism.
Converted Brahmins stayed at the top of the social ladder, and other caste lines continued to matter for things like who you could marry or even where you could sit in church. It created this Christian society with a social structure that would be completely alien in Europe.
Okay, so that's the history. But how does this complicated and, let's be honest, often violent past show up in the Goa that we all know today?
You know, after 450 years of such an intense push for Christianization, you might expect Catholics to be the majority. But check this out. Today, they make up about a quarter of Goa's population. It's still a really significant and influential community for sure, but Goa is and has always been a mostly Hindu state. It's kind of a testament to the limits of that colonial power.
All right, so let's tie this all together. What should you really take away from this? First, Goa's unique culture wasn't just some peaceful blend. It was forged in conflict. Second, remember that huge shift from early, practical tolerance to a full-blown, aggressive conversion campaign? And finally, and maybe most importantly, local Konkani culture was never erased. It adapted, it absorbed, and it reshaped everything to create the completely distinct society that defines Goa today.
And that really leaves us with this big, complicated question, doesn't it? Goa's whole story makes you wonder how a society deals with a painful past, and how a legacy of violence can somehow over centuries become a source of profound and totally unique cultural pride.